Hi, Mama Dr. Tochi here today with a class on spiritual baths. I know that this is something that is done quite commonly across different spiritual and religious paths and cultural in different cultures as well. But let's look in today's class and understand what we need to know about spiritual baths. What kind of things do you apply spiritual baths to? Do they work or do they not work? Are there conditions under which spiritual baths will work? Okay, I am aware that there are some practitioners, religious practitioners, spiritual practitioners, who will just recommend buy my bath, do my bath, and all your problems will be solved. But in today's class, we're going to have some forbidden fruit around that. Is the claim true? So go get the notebook, get the notepad, get the drink, get the snack, and let's get into it. Thank you for coming back. A little bit of housekeeping before we get into it. If you are a subscriber to my channel, thank you so much for being a part of my family. If you are a member, a double thank you to you for financially supporting the content that I put out here. I couldn't do it without you. If you'd like to be a member, please click on the join button that you see below this video, which should be beside the subscribe button. If you don't see the join button, it may not be, the feature may not yet be available in your country or region yet, but be sure to check on multiple devices, okay? Just to be sure. When you are a member of my channel, you have access to a number of benefits that general membership and subscribers don't have access to. Extra videos, extra learnings, discounts on my products and my services, and live streams that are meant just for members only. So check that out. Let's get into it. So what are spiritual baths and why are spiritual baths recommended? Spiritual baths are a form of cleansing. Okay, they are basically a form of cleansing. Granted that there are some spiritual baths that are designed to make you attractive to the good things you're looking for, the basic premise, the basic reason for a spiritual bath is for cleansing, to strip you of negative energy, negative entities, and things of that sort. Okay, that's the basic reason why we have spiritual baths. Now, the trouble or the challenge comes when people see spiritual baths as the panacea or the solution for everything that ails them, okay? In other classes, I've mentioned this, and I'll mention it in today's class. Spiritual baths in general cannot handle curses, especially generational curses. There are certain kinds of negative work that can be done on you that cannot be handled by just you going and putting together a spiritual bath. Okay, some spiritual baths can be put together by yourself, and some have to be put together by an experienced spiritual practitioner. What's the difference? When you put together a spiritual bath, in general, you get the ingredients together, you mix them up, and you say your prayers or invocations over them. You call on your spiritual crew and say, here's what I want. Free me from this or attract this to me. Boom, it works. But when you do have an intractable problem, something you've been trying to work on yourself for such a long time, and it's not yielding to your efforts, that's when you now need to get a spiritual bath from a spiritual practitioner. This spiritual bath from a spiritual practitioner has to be found out by divination. Okay, so I am leery of practitioners that you go to them, oh, I have a headache, here's a spiritual bath. I have tummy ache, here's a spiritual bath. I need a promotion at work, here's a spiritual bath. Someone is looking at me with an evil eye, here's a spiritual bath. I would think that such a practitioner would be, yeah, no, that's kind of suspicious. Okay, is that all you got in your toolkit? Before a spiritual practitioner will put together, and I'm talking about an experienced, authentic spiritual practitioner, before they put together a spiritual bath for you, they have to do a divination. You have to go to them for a consultation in order to find out the exact problem. We don't deal with self-diagnosis here. When the problem is divined and we find out what the problem is, then it is when the solution will emerge. Can this be handled with a spiritual bath? Does it need a ritual? Does it need a this? Does it need a that? And who needs to put together the spiritual bath? Is it the person who's consulting with you who needs to put together the spiritual bath, or the spiritual practitioner, or someone else? Because there's sometimes someone might have a situation, a condition that requires a spiritual bath, and the spiritual bath has to be put together by their mother or their father or their grandmother or grandfather. There are some people whose spiritual baths have to be put together by their children. But you will not know this except you find this out through a divination. Now, you might ask the question, Mama Dr. Tochi, why is it that, I can't put together all the ritual baths I need for myself? Why do I have to go to a spiritual practitioner? Why can't my spiritual crew deal with this? Good question. There are some people who are, for instance, struggling with situations that are complex. Okay, and there is more than one person involved in that situation. There's more than one spiritual entity involved in that situation. If you are not someone who is aligned with your spiritual crew, or you're not an active, authentic, experienced spiritual practitioner, you may not have enough alignment with your spiritual crew in order to get everything you need from them to resolve that situation. I'm trying to put this in the simplest possible form that we all can understand. So imagine that you've been going around your business, living your life. You've not really been in alignment with your spiritual crew. And then, bam, you hit this problem. First of all, you've not been in alignment with your spiritual crew. How do you think you're just going to say, oh, spiritual crew, I'm in trouble, come help me? You don't even have a foundation yet. You don't even have that spiritual foundation in place yet. Okay? So imagine that a long-lost relative shows up one day and is asking you to do them favors, to do things for them. Are you going to jump up and say, okay, yes, I'm going to do it for you, even though you haven't spoken to me in 30 years and you've had nothing to do with me, but I'm going to sally forth and do it for you? Chances are you would not. Okay, so that's similar with your spiritual crew. If you've not been in alignment, you've not been in contact with them, you've not been working together with your spiritual crew, and you run into that kind of problem that requires heavy duty work, then you will need the help of a spiritual practitioner. Okay. There are some conditions that a person might be undergoing that has been put on them by an experienced spiritual practitioner. Okay, and that also falls into the into the description or category of complex situations. You will need another spiritual practitioner to help you break down what this other practitioner has done. When practitioners do work, they usually put safeguards in their work, and I'm talking about those who know what they're doing, that someone else should not be able to break down their work. And if someone is able to break down their work, there will be blowback or repercussions for breaking that spiritual practitioner's work. You can pause the class right here, rewind, and listen to what I just said again. In this case, not only does the spiritual practitioner have to work to break whatever the situation is on you, they also have to protect themselves from any blowback or negative feedback that comes from them doing the work to free you from your condition. So you see, it becomes quite complex, okay? So it's not as simple as you going into your kitchen, grabbing some salt, cinnamon, and some olive oil, mixing it together, and then going about your business. Some spiritual baths can be put together and made effective by your own ordinary prayers or invocations. Some stronger spiritual baths are empowered by a spiritual practitioner who calls upon specific spirit guides whose function is needed for that spiritual bath to work. So let's say, for instance, a spiritual practitioner was putting together a protection bath for you. If you were to do it by yourself, you would gather your ingredients together, mix it all up, pray over it, and then use it and bathe. If a spiritual practitioner is going to do it, they're not just going to mix up the ingredients, pray over it, and hand it over to you. They are going to have it additionally empowered, not just by their own spiritual crew, but by additional spirit guides who are not attached to any one spiritual crew, but who have protective functions as what they're here to do. So the spiritual practitioner who is in alignment with them and is familiar with them not only will call their own spiritual crew to empower the spiritual bath, but will also call on these specific spirit guides and say to them, hey, I'm putting together this bath for so, and I want you to empower this, to be part of this so that it becomes effective and it does what I need it to do for this person. And because that spirit guide, its function is protection, it will participate. There are some spirit guides for not only protection, but breaking down of negative conditions. And those guides will also be called in. Can you break this situation, neutralize the situation, empower the person, surround the person with protection? And so you see, very quickly, it can become a complex ritual. The knowledge of which spirit guides do what often resides with experienced practitioners. You may be asking, why can't the practitioner tell me whom or what these guides are so I can call on them myself to empower my bath? You can call on those guides all you want. If you don't have their code, if you don't call them the proper way, if you're not aligned with them, you'd be wasting your time. An experienced spiritual practitioner is already aligned with them, has done the work to be aligned with them, knows what to say to get their attention and activate them to participate in the work that is being done. So I hope you're understanding that spiritual baths can be simple or complex depending on who's putting them together and for what reason. There are certain kinds of invocations that spiritual practitioners can use over a bath that invite more energy and more power than you sitting in your home with little or no knowledge about these things. Now, what kind of conditions lend themselves to spiritual baths? Curse breaking, protection, favor, wealth, well-being, healing. These are general conditions that do well with spiritual baths. Spiritual baths are not indicated or recommended for generational curses. If someone is going through a generational curse, they need more than a spiritual bath to get them out of that situation. And if you want to know more about generational curses, please watch my specific video on that topic. Not every bad thing that happens to you is as a result of a generational curse. I know that a lot of religious organizations like churches, they will bandy the word around generational curse, the thing happening to you is generational curse, it's happening in your family, it's a generational curse. No, my darling, there are specific signs that indicate that something is a generational curse. If like right now everyone's saying that we're in a recession, okay? There are lots of people during a recession who will be unemployed. You cannot be unemployed during a recession, for example, or unemployed in a country with bad governance, or unemployed in a country with a corrupt government and say it's a generational curse. No, what's happening to you is happening to a whole bunch of other people. So you can't say that that's a generational curse. Okay. So go watch my video on generational curses to know more about that. If there's something that has been going on for a long time, its source is buried, its source is embedded in the environment, you cannot deal with that with a spiritual bath. Because if the source of the issue is buried or embedded, each time you are in the environment where the problem is embedded or buried, you will be subject to that problem. So going to take a spiritual bath to deal with that is not going to help your situation. There are some spiritual baths you can do by yourself, for well-being, for protection, simple well-being, and things of that nature you can do by yourself that can help your situation. But for heavy-duty stuff, I would recommend you go to a spiritual practitioner, okay? Go to someone who knows what they're doing. Make sure that they're using the right tools. Make sure that they do a divination first before they prescribe the spiritual bath. There are some people, and this is coming up in consultations and discussions with you, that you watch some of my videos and you go to a spiritual practitioner with your self-diagnosis and you say to the person, I want you to do a divination and find the spiritual bath that I need to get out of my situation. That is not a smart thing to do. You do not go to a spiritual practitioner and tell them and put in their mouths the words to repeat to you. You're only asking for trouble. And if the practitioner is just tired of you and tired of your issues, they might acquiesce. They might say, okay, I'll tell you what you need to know so I can get the money and you can leave me alone. But that will not solve your problem. Please, folks, do not be running up to a practitioner saying, I know I'm under a curse and I want you to do a divination to put together a spiritual bath for me so I can get out under this curse. How do you know you're under a curse? And how do you know that a spiritual bath will be the solution to that curse? Assuming you have a curse. You see how it is. If you want to know more about curses and hexes and things of that nature, please watch my 2-part video in my channel on that, where I discuss curses, hexes, and things of that nature. And also watch my video on self-diagnosis, the dangers of performing self-diagnosis. Oh, I know my problem, therefore I know the solution. And then when you don't get the solution, you start blaming the practitioner. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed today's class. If you learned something, say AYE, in the comments section. Before we close, I'd like to invite you to book your divination consultation Reiki with me. Please go to my website at tochi.us, tochi.us. If you'd like me to coach you as a spiritual practitioner, as a spiritual business owner, or just for your spiritual lifestyle, also go to my website at tochi.us and book an appointment with me. If you need products and services that are already spiritually activated, all you have to do is get them and start using them. Please go to my website as well. I have events, I have courses, I have books, I have a whole wealth of information out there on my website that you can use. Do not do any transactions with me outside of my website. If anyone is asking you to send them money by Western Union, MoneyGram, Ria, Send, Wave, Remitly, or whatever is out there, they are fake. It's not me. I don't do business through MoneyGram, Western Union, and all that. I do all my transactions through my website. We're thankful to our Creator, our guardian spirits, our ancestors, our spirit guides, the messengers, and all those in the unseen realms who teach us what we need to know so that we can fulfill our destiny and live happy, loving lives here. Ashe.